Welcome back to the Glasgow Telefest show. This is our third episode and also the final of the mini pilot season that we did just before Christmas. As of next week, the format will change just a little bit, but chats with amazing people across Scottish arts, all about film and TV and Scottish storytelling and what it's like working in the industry up here. And of course, most importantly, the 1 minute pilots will of course continue. So for this episode, I got to chat to the fantastic Sean McDonald from the podcast Blethered. I got to know him last year when I was on Blethered to talk about the first Glasgow Telly Festival. He's such an interesting guy with so much to say about storytelling and culture, and also the absolute just hurricane of energy and comedy that is Gayle Telfer Stevens, who you will know from River City and so much comedy on TV and theatre, and she's just fantastic. We got quite deep actually into storytelling and the writing process and life as a creative. Of course, most importantly, the 1 minute pilot. So here it is. I really hope you enjoy it. One of the things that I'm really passionate about, that I know that you guys kind of are as well, is the fact that it is sort of open it up to anybody who just wants to do it themselves. Like obviously we know that the situation right now, there's a tiny group of gatekeepers who actually have the power to decide what makes it onto screens, whether that is film or TV or even audio or things like that. And what's really exciting, I think, about digital is that possibility of just anybody can get their story out there. And if people connect with it, then they can build that into something. Like both of you have been really great at kind of like creating those opportunities for yourselves and just kind of like starting things and seeing where they go. Like Gayle, obviously you're a writer and an actor. Like, did you always want to do them both, or did you start as one and then go, no, I'm going to have to write my scripts?
For me, it was always just acting. I always just wanted to perform, and it was always a stage thing. And then I got really into screen. I just love small intricacies of how day-to-day life works and watching that, and it fascinates me. I don't know why, but the writing thing came much later, and I'm still would not ever define myself as a writer.
Oh, really?
You have to.
Well, it's horrible because you don't wake up one day and it's John and go, I'm a writer. I remember there was a wee cutting in a newspaper article, and I'd said to my man years ago, I was like, yeah, I'm going to try and write this thing. Anyways, he showed me this. He went, are you a writer? Because that's what it said, are you a writer? So anyway, every time I say I'm writing the day, I'll go like that, are you a writer? Yeah. But I think it's one of the things where you've always wanted to do the acting. I do the acting, that's what I do, but that comes hand in hand with creation, and that's essentially what it is, because I do not think for 1 minute that you can sit at home and wait for the door to chap and say, hiya, do you want a job?
There is something, I wonder, is that like a bit of a Scottish thing in some ways? Because I guess one of the things that really intimidated like me when I first started writing is I just remember thinking, something I've made up in my head, are all these people going to like show up and do their work, and is someone going to pay for it? And it just felt like such an arrogant thing. I remember really well years and years for ago, I was one of my first jobs. I was an assistant director in a play in London. Nothing I had written or anything. I was just ran about making tea and things like that. And I remember it was in the lunch break or something, coming across like the main actress who was like playing the female lead, and she was sitting writing away. And I said, oh, what are you writing? And she said, I'm actually writing diary entries as my character. And that's what she would do. She would write a diary entry as though she had just lived through the scene as we'd rehearsed it that morning, and which was such a cool thing to do. I was so intimidated by the idea of being able to write something that would be worth somebody else writing diary entries about. Like, it's such an honour.
That's lovely.
It's a really kind
of...
It's
like they took it seriously. Serious enough to write their own diary entries.
Well, exactly. Yeah. And I just thought, what an incredible privilege that is to have created something like that.
It's quite an immersive acting process and preparation process, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Method acting to a new level.
Yeah.
But it's funny, like, if you were to take that, what was happening, but to transpose that into somebody's house, you'd be like, this person's a fucking maniac.
That's actually true,
else. I always find that really interesting.
Do you?
Yeah, just a bit, because it makes complete sense. And it's something so it's borderline preposterous. But
that's true. Written in an imaginary diary.
Yeah, but it's supplementary, and it definitely amplifies and enhances your performance as an actor. And I think you can then apply that to every sort of facet of creation. There are things that I do. Essentially, I stalk people and try and find out every single thing I can about them.
Yeah,
but it's for a creative reason.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes you have to apply then a wee bit of madness and unconventional behaviour to create something that other people don't.
Okay.
I love that. That's so true. Because you're right. It is absolutely, even things like we were talking about earlier, the things that we Google sometimes to write a story. And if you try to explain to somebody what you did with your working day, it would be like, are you okay?
I was
And
putting
no, I'm not.
a treatment. Right. I read it to my mum and she looked at me. She went, "Where the fuck do you get all this stuff from?" And when I was reading it, I was
What's
like,
in that vape?
I was like, I did not write that, but nobody else wrote it. And I was thinking, there are things that come out on like a session and you go back to and you think, that was that actually me? And you probably do that as well, like in ways and means of trying to find somebody or hold somebody down.
Yeah, the ways in which I essentially tried to be, this is going to sound mental, I try to become somebody else.
Oh.
So I find out...
Like Lee Francis.
Who?
Like Lee Francis.
No, not quite like that. It would be both selected there. The way I'll do it is I kind of... Well, I mean, it changes time to time, but what I do is try and find out every single thing. I create a profile of somebody, every single thing I could think about them. And you can descend into a wee bit of madness.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. Because I'll spend like 3-4 weeks just living in somebody's shoes.
Wow.
And if you can try and get a sense of how do they see the world, is that the same way that I imagine they would have seen it, or their sort of perspectives and opinions and types of things?
But that's quite close to obviously preparing for an acting role.
Yeah.
Like it's the same kind of deal, you know, like writing your backstory. Because as soon as you've written that down, right, I always feel that it's existing then. So, and not just in your body, but in your mind. So therefore, it just needs to be realised. That's what we talk about. It'll just become reality when you start shooting or whatever, because you've done the backstory on it. But you're obviously writing about this person, and
well, you're essentially trying to become them, and just filling in the wee gaps. And I always think it's a really interesting slant between what did I think about them, what did I know about them previously, what do I think other people think and know about them, but what do I think that they think about themselves, and then it's trying to bridge that gap sometimes, and it creates. So it's why, I mean, I must be no bad at the interviews by now, like, because it's kind of been going that long and I'm getting sort of bigger opportunities and stuff, and I think it's because I spend that time, and I'm then a really not a harsh critic, but a very like maybe harsh analyst of like how other people conduct interviews. I don't mean to do it. Yes.
Yeah, no pressure or
No, I don't
anything.
think that. Sometimes I'm just like...
I thought you were going to say about myself, but you've just went right on to...
I'm so harsh and brutal myself. I just mean any time watching anybody, I think, I feel like you could have done this.
Yeah.
Or you could have went this way, or you missed something.
But that makes it all the sweeter for you.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, there you go.
It does. And I think when you do that level of depth...
They know you're serious.
You're serious. You know you're showing respect to the subject. It's like...
But it's also, that's a big part of, I think, what makes it so fascinating to listen to, because there's a lot of other podcasts I will listen to if I'm already interested in the guest. I'm like, oh, that's so-and-so, I'm a fan of theirs, so I'll listen. But I'll listen to every episode of yours because I know it'll be interesting no matter who it is. But do you have, like, when you choose your guest, or like if you decide you want to kind of like go after somebody and speak to them, are you thinking, because I feel as though your podcast in a lot of ways, it's a bit of a slice of Scottish life. Like, you have such a range of people who've been in the arts and sports and politics. Like, are you thinking about telling like a story of Scotland, or is it just people that you happen to be interested in?
I think it's people I happen to be interested in. It just so happens that geographically we are in Scotland. I mean, my favourite episode was John Smith, who doesn't have to have like a public profile, because I've managed to make what seems to be the ordinary interesting. But I think in everybody, not to get pure Disney cliche about it, but everybody's got something very fascinating about them, very interesting, and it's just being able to find it, but also then being able to tell that in a story, because essentially you're telling a story.
Yeah.
In one way or
Absolutely.
another, whether it's about a subject, an incident, a person, a profession, whatever it may be. And it's your job to immediately from the start, like, keep people's attention.
Yeah.
And to create that. So I suppose there actually is an element of, well, there is script writing.
Well, exactly, because that's exactly what I would say about a scripted character. You want to find the character and find out what makes them interesting and get that across very quickly.
Like you're saying, you need to get there fast. Whereas when I would be writing, it's like a slow burner. If you're not doing a short film, it would be like a slower kind of journey to get to know that character. Whereas you're shooting from the hip.
As often as possible. Sometimes it's not possible, and sometimes there has to be a slow reveal. So like a good example of that was I interviewed an actor actually who was a former youth and then sort of early level professional footballer, and he was at Chelsea. Had this pretty interesting life. He played for Barnett's first team at the age of 15 with this legendary player, Edgar Davids. Did that was win the World Cup? No, Champions League and stuff. And that's all interesting. Now, the slow burn is we find out he created a play about the perils of youth football and the things they don't tell you.
Right.
When we get to the very end, the reveal is that there was elements of sexual abuse.
Wow.
but we can't go straight in with that. And what we need to do is tell the story. So I realised that, right, the responsibility I've got is to grab the listener. So we are going back and forth about football, and about youth football, and about the intricacies and how exciting is this. And you're essentially like getting the listener to
So
feel
you're
this.
building up to the climax, and then
It's a total anticlimax. Because then you're like, why did you walk away from this? Like, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Mhm.
And it wasn't actually said, it was just sort of like implicitly applied, which, because I wasn't going to be like, so could you say the line?
Yeah.
And I think we'll hopefully do something that's maybe more of like an expansive exploration into that. But so then therein lies an element of script writing, because I'm like, you could essentially tell that story in 5 minutes, but that one, it doesn't do, I think, the story justice, and two, there's a lot more to be said, and it's taking people through that roller coaster and essentially feeling what he felt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I try to get across to
Mhm.
people as well. Like, I want me and I want the listener to feel what that person felt throughout that process, but in just obviously a condensed 1 hour.
Absolutely. And that is, I think, it's so relevant to script writing, and it's something that we think about quite a lot as well, particularly when we're doing these things like 1 minute pilots. There are some stories that cannot be told in a minute, and that's fine. It's not that everything should suddenly go into short form. There's always going to be projects that need to have that slow burn. Adolescence, the beauty of that was the fact that some of it was, and not dull exactly, but it was the tension that was built up through
But it was really through the eyes of just watching the life of what was happening. Like that whole scene at the end when they're in the car, you could see it was on the one shot, right? And you're watching, and I'm thinking, and the person I was watching it with saying there's no much going on, and I'm like, no, that's what the point, right? This is it, right? Is to show these guys are in character from the minute they've started rolling. They're in that car. They've got to they can't be cutting. So they've taken that shot all the way through, and it actually served the TV show amazingly, because it was like, it was heartbreaking. It was like the whole thing was, but that, especially that bit at the end, I think, yeah. But when you're saying about the podcast thing, I didn't think there was so much to it, right? And I'm going to say, apologise. That's really inspired me, actually, because I see podcasts a lot of the time. They're informative, but a lot of podcasts are about talking shit to each other, right? There's a lot of that stuff out there, like, what'd you get for your dinner, all that kind of stuff. Like I was saying, I might do one that's the art of not giving a fuck. I mean, I'll need to script write it. I might include you in that, Sean.
Shit, give a fuck at your podcast. I'm not doing it.
Always heading for a boot in the balls, by the way. But you know what? It's that's quite a nice thing to hear, because there's a thought process and an actual structure to what you do.
Well, it's near on impossible to say this without sounding like a total jumped up funny.
Go for it. Go for it.
You're in a safe space, Sean.
I do see
it. Funny.
I see it as an art. For me, it's an art form.
Yeah.
And it is a creation of art down to the song that plays at the end. And sometimes sometimes it's got the most tenuous link. And I'm like, nobody's going to notice about that, but it comes all the way back to the first instance for doing it. I didn't do it to be heard, to be noticed, or to be seen. I did it because I felt I'll really enjoy this form of sort of expression and storytelling. And there are certain wee parts, but then that brings me to there is obviously a market for the people talking rubbish to each other. It's personally not my thing, but I would never begrudge anybody doing it.
It's that space for all things.
Brings us back to the point where it's like there are no barriers to entry, and if you want to create, go and create. It's not what I'd listen to, but I'd never. I'm not saying you were doing that for a second, but I would never denigrate or put anybody down.
But sometimes that is soothing to people. It's just people talking shit. It's like, it's white noise in the back, and that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I didn't actually think that, obviously. And I suppose those kind of podcasts do put a lot of that into talking shite. I mean, there's an art to everything.
Exactly, because there's talking shite and there's talking shite.
I personally see it as like, I'm not the point of interest. I'm the conduit for a story that I want others to know about.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just the way in which it flows through, and I'm the one that's
vehicle.
I'm the one that's pulling it out. Don't get me wrong, like I'm not backwards and coming forwards with my opinions and experiences and all that, but I'm conscious of having it as supplementary to what the guest is saying.
Absolutely. Do you know what I think was so interesting about like everything that you're saying is I think you should be lecturing to screenwriters, because there's so much, like everything, whether it is that designing of the story or interrogating a character, but also I think it's that willingness to be vulnerable. Like I think that was something I know myself, that I really, really struggled to get sort of further than, like I kind of got my agent when I first started out, and then I would get really close with commissions, but not quite. And I think looking back, an awful lot, I wasn't actually willing to be vulnerable in my writing it. It would be like, almost wish fulfillment. I used to write characters that were cooler than me, and they would, you know, like walk into a room and all the guys would be like, whoa, and I'd be like, oh, yeah, this is it. But that doesn't connect with anybody because it's a fantasy, because no one really feels like that.
I've got a similar thing, and something I used to do at early stages more so when I was being combative with people, is I'd be like, it's kind of like a Fox News technique. Some people say, and what I meant to say was me.
Exactly.
Third person.
Yeah, like some people say you're a fucking lying bastard.
Not
Like,
me.
so if I'm across a politician, I'm like, I think you're a fucking liar. It lands, because you get feedback from people and stuff, and like that lands so much more. But that requires vulnerability, because it could be, oh, well, some people have said, and then you might say some opinion. If you own it and say it's yours, okay, yeah, there may be resistance, pushback, blowback, or whatever, but people respect it a lot more. I always say, like, I respect people far more, even if I don't like what they say. Because liking somebody in admiration and respect are two different things. I think people conflate the two. I'm like, I'll respect what you say and I'll believe it if I know that this is what you really think. But if you try and pass it off as somebody else's, so again, it comes back to, I can't ask something of other people and not be prepared to kind of do it myself.
Absolutely. And the thing is, the difference of opinion spurs conversation, which is what a podcast is all about, isn't it? So that's the beautiful thing.
Yeah. And the same, I think, with anything writing. Like, do you find that, I know obviously you write like a lot of comedy, but the greatest comedy is dark and it's vulnerable and bleak sometimes as well. Like, where do you find that, like, I guess, balance between sort of putting those real things that frighten you into something to make it real, but then keeping it light and funny at the same time?
Do you know, I write about people I know, and the most recent thing that I've submitted is about my dad. He's got dementia, but he's like an absolute nightmare. But it's also about how it affects my mum. Like, the opening scene is like my mum holding a pillow over my dad's face, going like, "Yeah, bastard," and then he's like, "That, what is that?" And she goes, "Oh, do you want a cup of tea?" Because she's that apoplectic about living with him. And there's so much comedy in that. Like, I said to him, "I'm going to make a TikTok up, and I'm going to take you to your appointments, and we're going to film them, because I think this is comedy gold." It is about writing about your real experiences, because there's funny in everything. Like, I find things really funny in day-to-day life.
Somebody in my family's has got dementia as well, and that's the only way. I always say humour is, it makes the intolerable tolerable. It's an essential, like, pressure release valve. I always say to him, and it does get challenging. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's brutal, but we'll joke and stuff. And I'm like, I've gave you the same Christmas present 5 years ago. I just come in and take the same DVD out, wrap it up, and give it back. Somebody else in my family, because he always gives them money. For some reason, just this one person in my family gets given cash. I'm like,
how do they get cash?
I know. He said the other day, he was like to him, he's handing him 20 quid, and he's like, "Did I give you this already?" And whatever he said, the boy's like, "This is the 5th time I've been back today." He's like, "Just coming back, getting more money off you," and then we'll laugh about it, and like, it makes it more tolerable.
That's true. But I think a lot of the writing that I write about is people that I know, characters. Like, any character that I've played, it's always been loosely based on someone that I've come across, or even from the early days in comedy when I did the pilot for Scott Squad, for that kicking off, and it was about a girl that I went to school with, and she was absolutely mental. I love her dearly. I'm not going to name her, but when my hometown's the Renton, they were like, "Is that based on?" And I was like, and they knew right away.
Wow.
And actually, there's something quite cool about that, but obviously not everyone's going to know. But yeah, I think that, like, as I say, like, character is people, and observational, like, things will happen in my house. And I think, like, my dad had such a problem with me. He thought I was hiding my hula hoops. And this goes in this script. I'm like, fuck him, that's going in that script to embarrass him, but he's not even embarrassed, because he's like, he's so convinced I've hit the hula hoops. So I'm like, yep, okay, it's going in there. And it's all things that you've heard, or that people say, even sayings. I pick them up and I write them down in my phone. And
that's my favourite things.
Funny things off of people, because I've got no pattern in my own. Sometimes you just can't write. Sometimes I need to sit with something for ages before I even put, like, my hands on the laptop. And that's just the way it is. I think sometimes really good writers have great self-discipline. They're up at 5 a.m, they do 2 hours work, then they go away about their day, and then maybe in the afternoon they have a wee nap or something, and then they do another 2 hours, and then that's them done for the day. Me personally, I find it incredibly difficult to procrastinate. I'm the queen of procrastination, but I'm working on it. And I think if I was part of a writers group or something, I was part of a Zoom writers group during COVID. Do you want to do a writers group?
I would do a writers group. I was going to say, when you're trying to deal with procrastination, I was going to say, you think about doing something about it.
Or comedy genius. He used to be writing comedy. I'm not the best at that. And I
Yeah.
think that's what it takes is self-discipline and actually taking the olive branch of putting stuff out there and not, we can all complain about, I'm not getting this and I'm not getting that. Well, what are you doing about it?
Exactly.
And that's my biggest bugbear with Scotland is that, I've had lots of opportunities come my way, but I've also made opportunities for myself. And actually that's really important.
The thing about like waiting for things to come to you, I think for me, because I essentially came into whichever industry it is, because I feel like I kind of straddle across multiple, but came into this world in general, nothing was ever going to be handed to me. So I think I kind of learned that the hard way, and I've had quite a few humiliating rejections and setbacks and that type of thing, because there is a feeling of like abject humiliation at times when things don't go your way, or you can perceive it that way. I think if you're a sensitive soul, which I actually am.
But can I put that in a different context, right? Is that if you had been in this, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but if you'd been part of this kind of world from the get-go, you would understand that, see, that rejection and all that kind of humiliation, that's part and parcel of it. And that's essentially what it's insufferable, but it is. It's like you literally become so used to it. Yeah. Whereas I know that you've done politics and you've been to Barcelona and all from before we met, dead interesting guy. I'm like, oh my God, like a real good story to tell. And then you come into something that's either broadcasting, TV, I don't really know what it is myself, right? And it actually happened all at the same time. And I remember thinking, fuck me, where's all these young guns coming from?
Yeah.
Because we're in an age of social media, so anything goes. So we're all like, you're a broadcaster and a presenter, then you're an actor, but it's like Mary Black now, she's an actor. Yeah. Like, fuck me, where'd that come from? Yeah, 4 episodes, might I add. And I don't mind saying it, and it's no her fault, but it's like, that should never have happened. Cameo as an MSP, yes, but anyways, this is where we are. But that's what you get. You know how that feels because you've been in it since day dot. I've been doing it since I was 7.
Aye, for me, because I very quickly realised that is part and parcel. And if you can't hack it, get your jacket, you can't keep doing it. And it's kind of the same way, the criticism and all that. And I likened it to, if you're a plumber and you don't want to get any vile liquids on you, don't be a fucking plumber.
Yeah,
because
that's really good, isn't it?
is an unavoidable, non-negotiable sort of part of the industry in the world. But I feel like there is it. Not that I'm going to sit here and be like judge and arbiter of that's great and good, and like I get to define who does it right or who waits for things to come to them. But I think there is maybe, I don't know if it's maybe just a societal thing in general, that may be a total overreach. But I feel like there is a degree of people waiting for things to come, and I have sat and waited for things to come, and nothing came.
Yeah, we don't shut the door.
You need to go and do it.
There's an element as well, because I see it quite a lot. Because obviously, I speak to a lot of like young creatives, writers about like what we're doing and so on. And I definitely think there are people who sit and wait for something for sure. But I think there's an element of also waiting for permission or feeling like they need permission or validation or things like that.
Creating isn't somebody's bag, right? So really clear on what you want to do, right? You've got a real clarity of where you're going with that. Some people don't. Some people are led by, I'm an actor and that's all I do. Whereas I'm like, well, no, I think sitting at home is worse, waiting on something to come than actually all the voices and ideas that I've got in my head. Like your experiences, and I'm thinking, God, I'm doing a storyboard in my head like that. Oh, this sounds like a really good pilot. Anything goes nowadays, and unfortunately, a lot of actors have been left behind because there's so many strings to so many people's bows now, which I find really inspiring, right? Yeah. Especially with social media. But social media is a real big hit for our industry. We're investing our viewing time, me included. I'm just as guilty, in normal people when they make up on not a storyline and not a script. And actually I'm sold. I'm doom scrolling for hours.
Authenticity and things that are real. It's why we go on and talk about some of the pilots that we watched. I liked them. I liked the concept. I liked the people. But I was like, you're missing one thing and you're acting too much. And that sounds like the biggest sort of paradox, like sort of oxymoron. don't be acting this, but I can tell if you're acting.
I think there is with scripted, obviously the big thing is about finding that emotional authenticity within a kind of heightened dramatic world as well, which is always easier said than done. But so I guess a question then, like to both of you, like when is a time, and it doesn't matter from when or like whatever it was, that you saw a Scotland on screen that resonated emotionally?
Sweet 16 is the first one I think of, but then maybe my favourite film of all time is My Name is Joe. Peter Mullen. Yeah, they are, I mean, Green Up Cocaine, Not So Close, but looking at Martin on screen in Sweet 16, you're like, you're dressed the way I dress. Speak it as a two of Ken Loach films, so there's no coincidence there.
But then for an actor, that's a problem. Because it's raw. It's like,
oh yeah, that's
and there comes the total, don't know if it's the right word, juxtaposition, I don't know, but it's like you go, you train, you put your money where your mouth is, you train for years, and then Ken Loach's like, I'm going to make a film, by the way, and I want you. And this wee guy steps out and he's like, all right, guys, fair fucks to him. He's done fucking incredible, and he is incredible. He's a great screen actor, right? He's great. But I've been London, New York, in
Paris, Rome.
Yeah, we don't put it out a musical, Nick. But that's the thing. It's like the rawness of these films really connects you, right?
Yeah,
and they connect me as well, Sean. But there's a certain fire in my belly where I go like, But equally, I feel like there is craft there. But there's certain things like I know a young girl that was in what's the other one he did about the Angel Share.
Angel Share.
Jasmine Riggins, she's brilliant, and she's rough and ready. And when she was younger, and she trained. But it's like there are people that exist out there that can play those parts, right?
Yeah, I get that.
Absolutely.
Completely get that.
Also, I think it's an element of like just the vibes and the tone as well. Like, you know, I totally agree. Ken Loach is obviously phenomenal, and his films are they're hard hitting, partly because they feel so completely authentic and raw.
Yeah.
But then, you know, I wouldn't knock your Succession and The Wire, and, you know, there are glossier things. Again, it's about that emotional authenticity that I think you can get within a heightened dramatic world as well.
I was focusing purely in Scotland on screen. Do you know a point I would make? What I mean about authenticity doesn't always have to even be raw and rough around the edges. The first time I watched Normal People, where it's just a movement of the eyes or a slight downturn in the mouth, and I'm like, fuck, I couldn't finish it. And there was nothing in that, and to me that was more of the authenticity.
This is of a good screen actor. And hand on my heart, when you put a camera on anyone and they're aware of it, it's all like that, right? And I always said, like I was saying to Claire, my daughter's 13 and she's an incredible screen actor. I can't believe she's mine, because you put a camera on me at that age, and still at this age, I'm like, you know, whereas that's what makes a good, and there are good screen actors like Dawn Steele, she's incredible. Like if you watch her and she's really small, really tiny, and you think when you're on that, you know yourself, when you're on camera, you think, no, they're not going to be able to see that small downturn of the mouth or whatever. And that was what hooked you.
That's kind of where I think that like digital, like with these 1 minute pilots, they're like, they shouldn't feel like something you can watch on the telly. The same story might be able to be adapted to be a film or a series or whatever, but it's very much, I think, that intimacy of a character speaking directly to you.
Yeah.
It's
one-on-one.
Exactly.
And it's actually getting a hybrid of what we were talking about earlier.
Exactly.
It's actually grabbing the audience member to think that this is real in the first like 20 seconds or 10 seconds, and then realising that there's actually a story panned out for it, which is really quite cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's essentially what we eventually as a nation of screen is going to have to do.
Absolutely.
I really do think that, because we're so tied to your TikTok and your social media and all that kind of stuff, and then our attention spans are they're non-existent, right?
I think we're coming back around again.
I agree with you, because I think they are. See, what I think actually, and I've noticed this quite a lot with people, is that yes, the attention span is short in terms of like the one episode. But if you get into like, if you're following, you know, a drama or whatever it is, like I've watched entire podcasts or real people, like a breakup or, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I'll sit there for hours. The only difference is I'm scrolling from one scene to the next.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually what's going to be really exciting as writers, designing a narrative that you can actually consume by going, okay, well, there's 1 minute. Now I want the next one, and I want the next one. And actually, you can spend as long on TikTok as you can on Netflix. You're just a little bit more involved in the process. I think that's actually really quite exciting.
I feel like, because we're coming back around to long form. I think the appetite never went away, but I think maybe just the appetite for short form maybe increased quite a lot. I think that's maybe come back down and the balance maybe restoring. But that kind of makes me think about, I've had different, whether it's networks, commissioners, whatever it may be, saying, well, you need to do this because this is what people are going. I'm like, I don't need to fucking do anything because I create what I want to create. And man, how's this for jumped up? But when you say to Van Gogh or Picasso, that here, mate, everybody's changed their style. Like, create your art in the way in which you want to create it, and create it in the image of you and what you like, and the right people, the people who it's for, who will really buy it.
Yeah, exactly.
The audience will come.
See if it's not for you, that's great. But I'm not changing my expression purely to suit your ability to thing me, because we don't fit.
Exactly.
But there's more people like that will make to suit than you.
Aye, and I think the people who make to suit, they will never stand the test of time, I don't think, because they're always going to be continuing to try and adapt themselves. And when you adapt, you're changing. I think your authenticity is gone. The way I look at it is, I always say this: when everybody zigs, then I'm zagging. I'm doing what I want.
Yeah. Okay. But that's kind of, I think, is exactly what this kind of like revolution in the industry is all about. Because for a long time, if you wanted to work in telly, you had to write a 30-minute or a 60-minute, and there had to be time for adverts, just because that's what it was. And not every story fits perfectly into that. And what's really exciting about things like digital is that you start with a story that people want to watch, that are excited, or a character they're compelled by, and then the story, the format can build into whatever it is. And it might be long form for some, or it might stay in lots of short form, or somewhere in between. And you kind of actually get to be driven by the story and what the people that are excited by the story want, rather than, as you say, okay, now we have to do our 6 times 60 minutes to fit onto like, X broadcaster. Even what I see with, there's a lot of talk about like verticals and microdramas right now, which is exciting, but to me it is a half a step in the right direction and no more. And it's because they're still shooting shot, reverse shot, just like it might as well be on the telly. They've just taken a small version of what they're familiar with.
It's the product that they've always created, but they're just going, well, this is what we think people's eyes are. And it's like, yeah, but you're just trying to like transpose the old way of doing things, which is, again, it's fine. And do you know what? It's kind of a bit of an inverted snobbery, because I should be saying to them, well, that's such as your right, but then my frustration comes from, you do as you please, but fucking tell me I need to be doing that as well.
Yeah, that's true. But cutting those down and doing microdramas, it's all down to money as well. That's what all that comes down to. Everything comes down to money, and TV, whatever, right? Claire, what you're saying about obviously the 2-camera, the mini-series, these mini, like, have you seen these kind of like, not horror things, but there's a couple on I don't know if they're Netflix and Instagram or TikTok. And they're really successful because they're in shorter form, so they're grabbing.
It's attention span, sorry.
Attention span, basically there's a market for that, there's an audience for that, and that's already happening. But what you're saying is to grab them on that not complex way of shooting, which is that and like wide, that kind of thing, that you're just doing it to camera.
Yep. Right, exactly. Okay. And I think it is, again, it's an evolution. So I think that these microdramas, they're a really important step. And then once people start thinking, because already, even though they're shooting still the short reverse shot, they're framing it much tighter because they understand that that's how it works.
How much they've got.
So then the next phase is and it doesn't all have to be addressed to camera necessarily, but it's much more that you get into a character's inner life in a way that you don't normally get to on screen, because you'll get to hear directly from characters. So that's where you have these elements of the intimacy of a podcast or of theatre, which is why it's really a whole new medium. It's not just a format.
It brings us all the way back again to the whole authenticity thing, and if it's real and if it's good. And what was it Anthony Bourdain said, if we're speaking specifically about Glasgow, the most bullshit free zone on earth, and people detect your bullshit immediately. Absolutely. I think people can tell whether they realise that they're discerning or not. Here especially,
totally.
You look at something and they can see through it, or they can spot a bluffer a mile away.
And
exactly.
And
that's kind of then where this whole like Glasgow Telefest and the Women at Pilots concept comes from. One of the issues with the industry right now, because it is so risk averse and it's so, and again, it's nobody's fault. It's a system that's been broken for a long, long time. You don't really have space to fail. You know, like one of the things that kind of revolutionised.
I think anything goes at this point.
Exactly, and it has to. And that's kind of, again, what the 1 minute pilots are about. It's just, it should take you a few hours to do, put it in, and then if there's a spark of an idea in it, then it can go on to something else.
Aye, yeah.
Right.
Failure's not terminal, is it? It's just a process of refinement.
Exactly.
You've
Well,
got to
Mary
fail.
Pickford used to say that failure is not the falling down, it's the staying down.
Yeah.
And that's it. So you fall, we all fall down, but you just get back up again. Failure's when you decide to stay
But that's
down.
where you grow.
Exactly. The amount of people as well that I know that, maybe look at certain people and go, oh, they're on the telly, they've got that award, they've done X, Y, Z, they're successful.
Yeah.
Those people don't feel it.
No.
So and that kind of, again, it goes back to that needing that validate. Like when I first started it, I remember dying for that job, that commission, that award that would be like, tick, I am talented. I get to do this job. And it took me a long time to be like,
nobody can tell you,
coming.
But nobody will tell you. It's all about you telling yourself, unless you believe it. And that sounds so cliched, but you're fucked. Because if I don't believe it really inside, you can tell me a million times, Claire, I'm this, I'm that, I'm the next thing. I'm not believing you. I've been at the height at some of the most massive times in my career and felt the worst person on the stage, on the camera, anywhere. And actually, I think, no, it is about perception, and actually, all you want is really peace. And actually, see if it's in you. You've got to create, but you've got to stand your ground. You've got to be in your own path. And actually, and be unwavering. I remember my sister saying to me, "And when you're going to give all this shit up? I mean, it's not really working out for you, is it? And you might as well just get yourself on the council list as well for the house." And I was... Absolutely. And do you know what? It was one of the most defining moments of my life. And I went, I'll fucking show you.
Exactly.
And do you know what? I love my sister, but I did show her.
Yeah.
I make a living from creating and being in the industry, and that's the only way I can put it. And listen, the next year or the next 5 years might look totally different for me, but it's about having the tenacity to hang on and think, okay, and just being true and following whatever path.
So people say to me all the time, and I actually will take it as a complimentary type question for the most part, because they think, oh, you could maybe go further, but people always go, so what? I mean, what's the aim though? Where are you heading? I'm like, right, hold on a minute. I'm like, you fucking listened to me on the radio this morning. You watched me on BBC Debate Night last night, and you just told me you listened to my podcast. That's 3 different things. What more would you like me to do?
Exactly.
Am I allowed to just be content and just be happy with where I am, which has been difficult for me because I'm always looking forward, and sometimes it is nice to just stop and go, right, okay. It's nice to be here. Gets on my nerves.
Again, it's about defining success. Like you're saying, like, I always remember thinking, I realised it quite a few years into my career, that the world is divided into 2 different kind of people, right? People that, so if I say, right, I'm a writer, half of the people will go, oh, anything I've seen, anything I've read, anything, like, so are you, can I tick you off as a successful?
Yeah, what have I seen?
And then the other half go, what'd you write about?
Yeah.
Nice.
And that is
interesting, yeah.
And I think that everybody has, and that's kind of like what you're talking about, someone who's gone, well, where are you going with this? What does success look for you? And it's like, you're doing the thing.
Fucking everywhere.
I get a lot of...
We're all out to just be like, do that.
I get a lot of... I watched that
This
thing
is
you were in. It
success,
was
I'm doing
right. I watched that thing you were in. It was all right. But do you know what you should do?
Have you ever thought of going to Hollywood and just being in one of their films?
I
have thought of that.
I haven't thought of that.
My dad used to say to me, how'd you not phone them up at EastEnders and tell them to give you a job? I said, if it was that fucking easy, I would have done it a long time ago.
Speaking of which, you guys got to watch our shortlist of our 1 minute pilots, which, as we're talking about, again, it's people who are lots of different stages of the industry, some that are starting out, some who are actually really experienced, but this is projects that they just wanted to get out there and kind of see what they are. So you got to watch all 10 of the shortlist. First, just like generally, did you have any like overall observations in terms of maybe the types of stories, the genres? Was there things that were maybe like different compared to maybe like the scripts that you're reading at the moment?
I really saw the style in which it was filmed was really... Overall, it was like a 2-camera, apart from the footballer one as well. And it was really nice to see a lot of people that I know on there and how they'd went to the effort to obviously do that. And like, obviously a writer had, so I really enjoyed that aspect of the overall feeling of it. And like you're saying, to grab that attention in a social media-esque way. authentic.
Yeah, well, I noticed the same stylistically. It was all much through the lens of social media or a FaceTime call type thing. And that immediately was like, oh, this is interesting and unusual. That in itself captures your attention because it's like nothing you've seen before.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's kind of part of the idea, because I wanted to like put out a brief that was something, because I do think that, especially when like the general public, obviously we are used to watching shorts that are maybe done for next to no budget, and you can kind of see past it if you know why the sound wasn't great or whatever it is. But I feel as though the general public, and it's nobody's fault if you're used to seeing things that cost a certain amount, and then you see something that doesn't, it kind of almost gets in the way of your enjoyment of the story. And I felt like something that was in a format they were used to, it could just let the story and the character and the performance. I think that's one of the things for me, just seeing the central performances of every one of them, it just shows the incredible talent.
Well, see, when Twitter first started and they said that their reasoning for keeping to 140 characters was it fosters and encourages creativity, where people can't be too verbose, you can't like go over and over, and when you sort of place those parameters, people have to then perform within that. So like if you're even writing a wee funny line, you have to kind of tweet it and cut it and sort of that type of thing and edit it and refine it. And I felt that was similar because they had short space of time and they didn't have much even physical space. So they had to grab you their creativity as opposed to any other bells and whistles.
There wasn't one that I watched that I didn't get. What I really got the essence of what story was trying to be told in every single one of them. So I thought that was a real talent, like you're saying. So they've obviously had to manoeuvre in the parameters they've been given, but still that didn't cut off any kind of like meaning towards it or even message.
Exactly. I think it's amazing. And I feel as though I keep on saying to people, it's almost like reducing a sauce down. You know what I mean? It's not just see people, because I think the very first submission window that we put out for the first festival, sometimes people were putting in like just a minute's extract of a short film. And it would be like, this isn't enough. It needs the rest of the short. Whereas I think a true 1 minute pilot, it's like distilling it down into that, and it's amazing, especially with some of them, how much story you can suggest and how much of a world you can get across.
A lot of things you see are all style.
So in terms of the ones that like really kind of stood out to you, or ones that you could particularly go, oh, I would watch this series, was there?
So there was a bit of mystery behind the groupies one, and I was like, what's going on?
Is that the one with the amazing hair?
That was Dawn.
She does have amazing hair,
yeah. So I was like, what's going on here? She got that question the last minute on the screen, and she bailed on it. She went, oh. So I would like to know more about what's going on. The au pair did grab me, just because it was funny, and I didn't know where she was going with it. It was like, it was all that kind of, like conceal until like obviously she's hiding from her child, that kind of thing. And then I felt, we've all been there, haven't we?
Oh, totally.
No, in recent years, right enough, but I just thought it was quite a good progression. The naivety of the character, I felt quite sorry for.
Yeah, I loved the time traveller one. That's just right up my street as a kid. I loved it, but I thought it was really funny and it was really well done.
But the guy who's the phone's run out of battery and he's in the 1700s, the kind of Outlander take off of it.
Oh, that was funny.
You know the one that Joe McFadden was in, what was that about?
Triggered.
Yeah, I did like the way that was shot, because it was like,
I think that's one of the ones that there's so much story packed into that minute and 20 seconds or like whatever it is. Just the progression of mad night out, got a gun, it's loaded, and then he's like, I'm going to take it out. What do you mean you're going to take a gun out with you? Like all of a sudden, this is a different character.
But then the thing is, do you leave it at home? Like what happens if it goes?
Exactly.
So it's like,
there's so many different ways that I feel like that one could go. And that to me is again what a great 1 minute pilot is, that when you're already going, oh, it might be this, or it might be this, or it might be this. And the writer might have something else altogether, but they've got something else in mind.
So those ones like Groupies that triggered, and...
I like Karen's where she's like a ghost.
Oh yeah, the medically induced zombie.
Medically induced zombie.
I did get that at the end. I thought that was really cool because obviously she'd be murdered,
Yeah, that's what I took from it. So there's something, because I loved like growing up, Bernard's Watch. Well, this wee guy can stop time. And I used to always watch this CBBC programme and I'm like, you could be doing so much better with this, you little gimp. Like, be more creative with it. But like the Queen's nose in anything time travel. And I felt there was a wee element between the time traveller one and Karen's, where there's like a sort of whimsical, oh, this is a CBBC show for the 90s. And then you find out she'd been murdered and you're like, oh, there's actually, and it's light and shade as well. And I bet you I could see with Karen's one, if that was to become a series, I could see that as being like, playing with people, or being like, they're the invisible boss and chewing the fat.
That was quite funny.
There's elements of that comedy nature.
There's also quite a dark element to that, where there's quite a serious sort of, could be like a comedy drama. But I think the groupies one, I really wanted to, for longevity of something, I'd like to know what's happening and triggered. But I thought they were all great, and they were really good concepts. Not all similar.
Yeah,
really
I
different.
think that's one of the things I loved about it. It's such a range of, again, like I say, from sci-fi to comedy to crime to like thriller that might be crime too. We don't really know yet. Like there's just such a kind of like range of genres. Like I feel as though very often, particularly in Scottish TV, you've kind of got your crime thrillers and then you've got a bit of comedy. And that's as if that's all we can do.
Yeah,
you've got maybe your sexy Jacobites here and there.
Right, okay.
But like I loved, and this was actually all the submissions, like some of which didn't maybe get through this time around. It's just every type of story, every tone, every type of character. There's such a kind of like
Anything
range,
goes.
which is so exciting.
Yeah. People are obviously doing what comes natural to them, as opposed to going, what's out? What's out, and I'll just make another one.
Exactly.
Or even like, a lot of times with BBC, you're given a brief, so we want more of this. And you're like, okay.
But I don't have those ideas. Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes you don't have the idea, so whatever idea.
We want exactly this thing. I mean, part of me wants to go, fucking make it yourself. Like, make it yourself. If that's what you want so much.
It's right, because it begs the question. You sit and do all that work and you give it over and they go, no, do you know what would be better about that? If you did this, this, this and this,
like,
then you go away and do that, right? And then they still go,
Still
it would still be better if you did that.
Yeah,
and you're spending time and effort where you could be earning money.
I will tell you that I've got a few stories that radicalise me, but one of the ones was I went into a production company who'll remain nameless to pitch. It was a time travel series, and the story was different characters from different periods of time coming through into like now in Glasgow. So there was this like band of Vikings that showed up, and the joke was, would anyone even notice?
Right.
If there was like marauding down, Sucky Hall Street on a Saturday night or whatever, what's that stag do?
Yeah.
But then there was also an American GI from the war, and there was like all different characters. So anyway, so I pitched it, and this guy went, oh, it's really good, it's really, really interesting, but to give you some feedback, I think see if you just focus it around just the Vikings and just make it, that's the pitch. It's Vikings in modern day Glasgow. Then I think it could be something. And I went, oh God, right, amazing. So I went home and I rewrote the whole thing, because of course I had all these different storylines with the GI, with the guy from the 60s, with the woman from the 1800s. Took all of that out and rewrote the whole thing around the Vikings, and I sent it in to him, and he emailed me back a few days later and went, oh, do you know, I think there's too many things about Vikings right now. Can't take it. And I was like, who told me to make it about Vikings? It was just like,
And that's actually so imperative that we create our own work. Because as long as these kind of people are in power, they throw out, there's a really good, is it Mapping and Webb comedy? They're a duo, aren't they?
Mapping and Webb's the duo.
What's their name?
Mitchell and Webb.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Shoot me now. Anyway,
That's a Freudian slip.
But basically they've got this sketch. And it's like, no, do you know what would be really good? We're really good if you did it like this shark, and then the shark comes and then he bites the head off. And then, no, actually don't do that. And it's all these opposing ideas of what this writer should do. And it's like, because really in turn, they don't know really what they want.
They don't.
And when you spout, oh, I think it should be that. And then we're sitting like the vulnerable going, okay, right. Like a meerkat, I always say, we're sitting there eager to please because you want a job. That's fine. You need to go like that. No.
I'm
doing what I'm doing, and that's it.
Yes.
Well, a lot of it, I think they're a lot of them are very averse. I just state the pure obvious, but really averse to not even risk, but just differentiating from the norm. And
that's why I think what we really need to do, and what Glasgow Telefest is setting out to do, is basically just flip the industry around. Right now, it's from the top, like you say, it's commissioners going, we want something like this. And then us all trying to fit into that. But by starting with these 1 minutes and building it up, it's just turning it around, and then audiences get the chance to say what they want.
And the commissioner should be coming to these creators and saying, please, we have your concept and your show.
That's what happens, because
they will. They will, because then they become safe bets. That's how you make things safe bets.
But there's also the question that when a commissioner commissions the same thing over and over again, right? they don't really, I think they obviously do have like audience numbers and stuff, but when something's very new and fresh and it's already got an existing audience out with a TV land, you know, they're not out looking for that. It's just if something's right put in front of their face. And that's the disappointing thing, because they work very hard on certain things, but some commissioners are very stuck in what they're, and I can imagine they're going off like viewing figures and all kinds of percentages and stuff like that, but a wee bit of risk wouldn't go amiss, would it?
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good tagline.
Wee bit of risk
Would it go amiss? So, guys, thank you so much. I could talk to you all afternoon. I feel like it's starting to get dark, and we'll just like get a bottle of wine and carry on.
I'm up for that. Yeah.
But thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
I really appreciate it. And
Thanks, Sean.
yeah, have you on again sometime soon.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Amazing. Thank you.